Picture this, a woman so powerful, so enigmatic, that 2,000 years after her death, we still whisper her name with equal parts awe and curiosity. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, a ruler wrapped in layers of legend, deception, and untold secrets waiting to be unraveled. What if everything you've been told about her is just the tip of the pyramid? Today, we're pulling back the veil on 30 chilling mysteries hidden in the shadows of her reign, vanishing treasures, palace conspiracies, and deaths so strange they defy explanation. From her lost library of forbidden knowledge to the eerie curse clinging to her jewels, these aren't just stories, they're fragments of a puzzle that could rewrite history itself. And here's the twist, some of these secrets might still be lurking in plain sight. So grab your torch, we're stepping into the labyrinth of Cleopatra's world, where every corner holds a revelation more shocking than the last. By the time we're done, you'll question everything you thought you knew about history's most mesmerizing queen. Ready to dig deeper? Let's begin. But before we dive into the shadows of Cleopatra's reign, let's peel back the layers of one of history's most tantalizing vanishing acts, the Great Library of Alexandria. Imagine a treasure trove so vast it held the collective knowledge of the ancient world, from astronomical charts to medical texts, all under one roof. Now picture it gone, not just misplaced but erased from existence without a trace. The question is, how? Some say it was Julius Caesar who accidentally set it ablaze during his siege of Alexandria in 48 BC, when flames from burning ships in the harbor spread uncontrollably. Others point to a later attack by Christian zealots in the 4th century, determined to purge pagan wisdom. But here's where it gets eerie. Cleopatra herself may have had a hand in its fate. Ancient historians whisper that she relocated its most precious scrolls to a hidden vault beneath her palace, fearing Roman greed. Could those texts still be buried somewhere, waiting to be found? The library wasn't just a building, it was the beating heart of intellectual life, with 500,000 scrolls covering everything from alchemy to zoology. Among its rumored holdings, Cleopatra's own diaries detailing political schemes and even recipes for poisons. If recovered, they could rewrite everything we know about her reign. Modern archaeologists have scoured Alexandria's coastline, using ground-penetrating radar to hunt for hidden chambers. In 2004, a team claimed to find tunnels lined with storage niches near the ancient harbor, but no scrolls. Yet, and then there's the darkest theory of all, that the library never truly burned. Instead, its knowledge was systematically looted over centuries, scattered to private collectors or locked away in Vatican archives. A few fragments surfaced in medieval Arab texts, referencing lost Greek works on optics and mechanics. Works that shouldn't have existed in that era. Were these salvaged pages from Alexandria's ashes? The irony, Cleopatra, the last guardian of Egypt's wisdom, might have outsmarted history itself. If those scrolls survive, they're her final, unbroken cipher. Now, let's turn to a mystery even closer to the queen's bloodline, the tangled truth about her mother's identity. Was she Egyptian, Greek, or something far more unexpected? The answer could shatter myths about Cleopatra's legacy. Shifting our focus from lost scrolls to hidden bloodlines, we arrive at one of the most hotly debated questions about Cleopatra: who was her mother? This isn't just a matter of genealogy, it's a key to understanding how Cleopatra wielded power in a world where identity dictated everything. The official records claim her mother was Cleopatra V, a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, Greek rulers who'd controlled Egypt for nearly 300 years. But here's the twist. Historians have long suspected that her mother might have been an Egyptian concubine or noblewoman, not a pure-blooded Ptolemy. Why does this matter? Because if true, it means Cleopatra wasn't just another foreign ruler, but a queen with genuine Egyptian roots, a fact she might have used to cement her bond with the people. Ancient sources add fuel to the fire. The Roman historian Strabo quietly noted that the Ptolemies sometimes married outside their line to secure alliances, while temple carvings in Dendera depict Cleopatra with features more commonly associated with native Egyptians. Then there's the curious case of her sister, Arsinoe IV, whose skeletal analysis in 2009 revealed African ancestry, a bombshell hint that their mother may not have been fully Greek. But the plot thickens. Some scholars argue her mother could have been part of a lesser-known branch of the family, perhaps even from the Seleucid Empire, blending Greek and Persian blood. This would explain Cleopatra's famed adaptability. She wasn't just negotiating with Rome, she was playing a game of cultural chess, leveraging every strand of her heritage. The implications are staggering. If her mother was Egyptian, it redefines her famous appeal to the priesthood and her mastery of the native language, something no other Ptolemy managed. Imagine the shock in Rome when their rival wasn't just a Greek interloper but a pharaoh who could speak to her people in their own tongue. And if her lineage was mixed, it cast her relationship with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony in a new light, not just as love affairs but as calculated moves by a queen who knew how to weaponize perception. The truth may lie beneath Alexandria's waves. If her mother's tomb was in the royal quarters, now submerged, DNA testing could settle the debate. Until then, this mystery remains a gaping hole in history, one that shaped an empire. Now, let's turn to a story that blends extravagance with audacity. The infamous bet where Cleopatra supposedly dissolved a pearl worth millions in vinegar. Was it a power play or pure myth? The answer might surprise you. But let's step away from bloodlines and into the realm of dazzling extravagance, because Cleopatra's next mystery isn't just about wealth, it's about sheer audacity. The notorious tale of the dissolved pearl is one of those stories that feels too bold to be true, yet too intriguing to dismiss. Here's what ancient sources claim. During a lavish banquet with Mark Antony, Cleopatra wagered she could spend an unfathomable sum, 10 million sesterces, on a single meal. Antony, ever the skeptic, took the bet. The next evening, she served a modest feast, leaving him smug until she gestured to her cup. With a theatrical flourish, she removed one of the largest pearls ever recorded from her earring, dropped it into vinegar, and drank the dissolved treasure. The shocked Roman could only concede defeat. But how much of this story holds water? The Roman historian Pliny the Elder is our primary source, and his account drips with moralizing disdain for Eastern excess. That's a red flag. Rome reviled Cleopatra as a decadent temptress, and tales like this fed the propaganda machine. Pearls don't dissolve instantly in vinegar. Chemistry tells us it would take days. Some historians suggest she might have used a pre-crushed pearl or a clever substitute, turning the stunt into psychological warfare, proof that her wealth and cunning outstripped Rome's. Then there's the question of motive. Antony was funding a war, and Egypt's treasury was his lifeline. Was this a playful power move or a calculated reminder of who held the purse strings? The timing is suspicious. The banquet allegedly occurred during their alliance's peak, when Antony needed her loyalty and her gold. By wasting a fortune, Cleopatra may have been demonstrating just how expendable riches were to her, subtly asserting control. The pearl itself adds another layer. Ancient texts describe it as one of a matched pair, the second later split and displayed in Rome as a trophy. But no archaeological evidence of these gems exists. Could the entire story be a metaphor? In Egyptian iconography, pearls symbolized hidden wisdom, while vinegar represented transformation. By consuming the pearl, Cleopatra might have been staging a ritual, a literal internalization of power meant to awe Antony's superstitious Roman sensibilities. Or perhaps the truth is simpler. A queen famed for spectacle knew exactly how to craft a legend. Whether fact or fiction, this story outlived her because it encapsulated her essence: unmatched opulence, razor-sharp wit, and a flair for turning even a dinner party into a political chessboard. Now prepare to descend into the sands of time, where another mystery awaits. the elusive resting place of Cleopatra and Antony, a tomb that's defied discovery for millennia. Why has it stayed hidden? The answers might lie as much in politics as in archaeology. Diving deeper into the shadows of history, we arrive at one of archaeology's most tantalizing puzzles: the final resting place of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Their tombs have vanished without a trace, sparking centuries of speculation and countless expeditions. Yet, despite the efforts of historians, treasure hunters, and even modern technology, their burial site remains stubbornly hidden. Why? The answer may lie in a tangled web of politics, ancient secrecy, and the sheer passage of time. Let's start with what we know. Ancient writers like Plutarch and Suetonius mention that Cleopatra and Antony were buried together in a grand mausoleum near Alexandria, a structure as opulent as the queen herself. Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, supposedly allowed their joint burial as a gesture of respect, though some argue it was simply to avoid turning their deaths into a rallying cry for rebellion. But here's the twist: no physical evidence of this tomb has ever been confirmed. Not a single inscription, not a crumbling wall, not even a rumor that's led to a definitive discovery. Modern archaeology hasn't given up, though. One promising lead points to Taposiris Magna, a temple complex west of Alexandria. Dr. Kathleen Martinez, a Dominican archaeologist, has spent years excavating there, convinced that Cleopatra chose this site for its connection to Osiris, the god of the afterlife. Martinez's team has uncovered intriguing clues: a series of underground tunnels, a mask believed to depict Antony, and even a cache of coins bearing Cleopatra's face. But the smoking gun, a sarcophagus or inscription confirming their presence, remains elusive. Skeptics argue that Taposiris was too far from Alexandria to fit historical accounts, but Martinez counters that Cleopatra, ever the strategist, might have picked a discreet location to avoid desecration by Rome. Then there's the possibility that their tomb lies submerged. Alexandria's coastline has shifted dramatically over 2,000 years, and parts of the ancient city now rest underwater. Marine archaeologists have discovered stunning ruins, palaces, statues, even Cleopatra's legendary palace complex beneath the Mediterranean. Could her tomb be among them? Some researchers believe so, pointing to sonar scans that reveal unnatural structures deep below the waves. But underwater excavation is painstakingly slow, and without clearer targets, the search remains a gamble. Another theory suggests the tomb was deliberately erased. Roman emperors often demolished monuments tied to their rivals, and Cleopatra's memory was systematically vilified after her death. If her mausoleum was dismantled or repurposed, its stones could have been scattered across buildings still standing today. Imagine, the very walls of a mosque or church in Alexandria might hold fragments of her lost tomb, their origins long forgotten. The mystery deepens when we consider the personal stakes. Cleopatra was a master of symbolism. If she planned her own burial, wouldn't she have designed it to defy Rome's reach? Some scholars propose she was interred in an unmarked grave, or even that her remains were secretly moved to evade capture. After all, this was a woman who turned every act into a statement. Her tomb wouldn't just be a resting place, it would be a final act of defiance. So why does this search matter beyond solving a historical whodunit? Finding Cleopatra's tomb could rewrite chapters of Roman and Egyptian history. Her burial artifacts might reveal unknown details about her reign, her relationship with Antony, or even the true circumstances of her death. And let's not forget the cultural weight. Imagine the impact of discovering the grave of one of antiquity's most iconic women, a figure who's captivated imaginations for millennia. As the hunt continues, one thing is certain: Cleopatra, ever the enigma, seems determined to keep her secrets. But with every shovel of earth turned and every sonar ping analyzed, we inch closer to unraveling the truth. And who knows, the next breakthrough might be just beneath our feet, or hidden in the depths, waiting for the right moment to surface. Now, shifting our gaze from the sands of Egypt to the murky waters of political intrigue, we encounter a mystery far more sinister: the unexplained death of Cleopatra's sister, Arsinoe IV. What really happened to the young princess who dared to challenge the throne? Turning from the hidden tombs of Egypt to the shadowy corridors of power, we find a mystery wrapped in betrayal and unanswered questions: the sudden and suspicious death of Cleopatra's younger sister, Arsinoe IV. Her story is one of ambition, rivalry, and a fate that remains hotly debated even today. Arsinoe was no passive figure. She dared to challenge Cleopatra's claim to the throne, aligning herself with their brother, Ptolemy XIII, during the civil war that pitted the siblings against each other. For a brief moment, she even tasted power, declared queen by factions opposing Cleopatra. But her triumph was short-lived. After Julius Caesar intervened, backing Cleopatra, Arsinoe was captured and paraded through Rome as a prisoner in Caesar's triumphal procession, a humiliation meant to showcase Rome's dominance. Yet, instead of executing her, Caesar surprisingly spared her life, exiling her to the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus. This is where the mystery deepens. Years later, as Cleopatra solidified her alliance with Mark Antony, Arsinoe's fate took a dark turn. Ancient sources like the historian Josephus claim that Cleopatra, fearing her sister's lingering influence, convinced Antony to have Arsinoe assassinated right within the sacred walls of the temple. The act would have been a shocking violation of sanctuary, sparking outrage. But was it really a political murder, or was there more to the story? Some scholars argue that Arsinoe's death might have been staged as divine retribution. The Temple of Artemis was a place of immense spiritual significance, and rumors swirled that her killing was framed as punishment for sacrilege or treason. Others suggest her demise could have been the work of local factions in Ephesus, eliminating a potential pawn in their own power struggles. The truth is muddied by the fact that Arsinoe's remains have never been conclusively identified. In 2007, archaeologists in Ephesus uncovered a headless skeleton in an octagonal tomb, speculated to be hers due to its grand structure and location near the temple. But without inscriptions or DNA proof, the identification remains speculative. What makes Arsinoe's story so compelling is the lingering question of motive. Was Cleopatra truly so threatened by her exiled sister that she ordered her death? Or was Arsinoe caught in a wider web of Roman politics, where Antony's rivals sought to destabilize his alliance with Egypt by removing a symbolic opponent? The lack of concrete evidence leaves room for theories ranging from cold-blooded elimination to tragic misunderstandings. Arsinoe's death also raises broader questions about the brutal realities of dynastic survival. In Ptolemaic Egypt, royal siblings were often rivals first, family second. Her fate underscores the peril of being a claimant to the throne in an era where power was won and lost through blood. Yet her legacy endures not just as a footnote in Cleopatra's saga, but as a reminder of the countless voices silenced by history's winners. As we piece together the fragments of her life, one thing is clear: Arsinoe's story is far more than a tale of sibling rivalry. It's a window into the cutthroat world of ancient politics, where survival demanded both cunning and ruthlessness. And with every new archaeological clue, we come closer to uncovering the truth behind her untimely end. Now, let's voyage from the intrigue of royal bloodlines to the lost wonders of Cleopatra's maritime empire, a city swallowed by the sea, where ruins whisper of a queen's ambition beneath the waves. Beneath the waves off the coast of Alexandria lies a silent testament to Cleopatra's ambition, a sunken city that once thrived as part of her maritime empire. Shifting our gaze from the shadows of royal betrayals to the mysteries buried underwater, we uncover the ruins of Heracleion, known to the ancient Egyptians as Thonis. This bustling port city, now lost beneath the Mediterranean, was a jewel in Cleopatra's crown, a hub of trade, culture, and political power before it vanished beneath the sea. Heracleion wasn't just any city, it was the gateway between Egypt and the Mediterranean world. Ships laden with gold, incense, and exotic goods from across Africa and Asia passed through its harbors, paying taxes to Cleopatra's treasury. Temples dedicated to gods like Ammon and Isis stood alongside grand statues of pharaohs, their splendor reflecting Egypt's wealth. Yet by the end of the 1st century, the city had disappeared from maps and memories, sinking into oblivion until its rediscovery in the year 2000 by underwater archaeologist Frank Goddio. So why did this vital city sink? The answer lies in a perfect storm of nature and neglect. The Nile Delta's soft, shifting sediment made the ground unstable, and over centuries, rising sea levels and earthquakes likely triggered liquefaction, a process where solid ground turns to liquid under pressure. Add to this the weight of Heracleion's massive stone buildings, and the city was doomed to collapse. Some historians speculate that Cleopatra's focus on Alexandria's grandeur may have diverted resources from maintaining Heracleion's infrastructure, leaving it vulnerable. The discoveries from Heracleion paint a vivid picture of its final days. Divers have recovered colossal statues of queens and gods, their features still sharp despite centuries underwater. A stele inscribed with a decree from Pharaoh Nectanebo I reveals the city's religious significance, while gold coins and jewelry hint at its prosperity. Most intriguing is a series of ritual barges, suggesting Heracleion hosted elaborate ceremonies for Osiris, god of the underworld, a poignant irony for a city now itself submerged. But was Heracleion's fate inevitable, or did human actions accelerate its demise? Some researchers point to evidence of sudden destruction, collapsed columns and toppled statues that align with ancient accounts of a devastating earthquake around the year 700. Others argue that rising sea levels, worsened by deforestation and soil erosion up the Nile, slowly swallowed the city. Whatever the cause, its sinking was a blow to Cleopatra's empire, severing a critical link in her maritime network. The story of Heracleion is more than a tale of natural disaster. It's a reminder of how even the mightiest civilizations are at the mercy of the earth. For Cleopatra, the loss of this city may have symbolized the fragility of her power, a fragility that would ultimately extend to her kingdom. As we piece together its ruins, we're left to wonder, if Heracleion had survived, could it have changed the course of Egypt's history? Now, let's turn from the drowned city's whispers to an object of dazzling beauty and dark legend: Cleopatra's cursed emerald, a gem said to bring misfortune to anyone who possessed it. Shifting from the drowned secrets of Heracleion to the glittering enigma of Cleopatra's treasures, we come to one of history's most haunting legends, the Cursed Emerald. Unlike the sunken city, this jewel didn't vanish beneath the waves. Instead, it surfaced time and again, leaving a trail of tragedy in its wake. Stories claim this emerald was more than a royal adornment. It was a talisman of doom, passing from hand to hand with devastating consequences. But how much of this is myth and how much might be rooted in truth? The emerald's origins are shrouded in the fog of time, but most accounts trace it to Cleopatra's fabled collection of gems. Ancient writers like Pliny the Elder described her passion for rare stones, and the emerald, a symbol of rebirth in Egyptian lore, would have held special significance. One legend suggests it was mined from the legendary Cleopatra's mines in the eastern desert, though no historical records confirm this. What we do know is that emeralds were prized for their vivid green hue, believed to hold the power of fertility and eternal life. Yet this particular stone seemed to carry the opposite curse. The first whispers of its misfortune emerged after Cleopatra's death. Roman historians noted that a massive emerald looted from her treasury was gifted to Emperor Augustus's sister Octavia. Within months, Octavia's young son Marcellus, heir to the throne, died suddenly of illness. Superstitious courtiers blamed the jewel, though skeptics dismissed it as coincidence. The emerald then vanished for centuries, only to resurface in the hands of Byzantine Emperor Justinian I. His reign was marked by riots, plague, and financial ruin, and chroniclers of the era pointed to the gem as a harbinger of his misfortunes. By the Middle Ages, the stone had gained a sinister reputation. It appeared in the inventory of a French nobleman in the 12th century, who reportedly went bankrupt within a year of acquiring it. Later, a Spanish conquistador claimed to have found it in a looted Incan temple, only to drown in a shipwreck off Panama, his body allegedly recovered with the emerald clutched in his fist. Each tragedy fueled the legend, blurring the line between historical record and embellished folklore. Modern gemologists have tried to trace the stone's path, but its existence remains unproven. Some speculate it was recut or destroyed, while others insist it's hidden away, waiting to unleash its curse anew. What's fascinating isn't just the jewel's alleged malice, but how consistently it's tied to power, always surfacing among rulers and fortune seekers as if drawn to ambition. Cleopatra herself, a master of symbolism, might have appreciated the irony. A gem meant to symbolize eternity became a reminder of fortune's fickleness. So was the curse real, or just a cautionary tale spun by history? Perhaps it's both. In a world where gems were thought to hold divine energy, belief in their power could shape destinies as surely as any spell. Whether the emerald brought misfortune or simply became a scapegoat for it, its story endures as a dark mirror to Cleopatra's own legacy, a blend of brilliance and tragedy. Now, let's unravel another layer of her enigmatic rule. The secret codes and symbols she used to outmaneuver her enemies, a language of shadows woven into her diplomacy. Moving from tales of cursed jewels to the shadowy world of political intrigue, we uncover one of Cleopatra's most brilliant strategies, her secret language of diplomacy. Far more than just words on papyrus, her messages were a masterclass in subterfuge, woven with hidden meanings and coded symbols designed to outmaneuver her enemies. While Rome saw her as a temptress or a pawn, those who truly understood her methods recognized a ruler who played the game of power with unmatched cunning. So how did she turn ordinary letters into weapons? Cleopatra's correspondence was a labyrinth of deception. Historians studying her letters to Julius Caesar and Mark Antony have noted odd inconsistencies, phrases that seemed innocuous but carried layered meanings, or symbols tucked into the margins that didn't match standard Egyptian or Roman iconography. For example, a papyrus fragment sent to Antony mentions the ibis at dawn, a phrase absent from other diplomatic texts of the era. Egyptologists later connected it to Thoth, the god of wisdom and secrecy, suggesting the line was a veiled reference to an impending betrayal, one Antony reportedly ignored to his peril. Then there were the seals. While most royal missives bore straightforward insignias, Cleopatra's wax seals occasionally featured subtle anomalies, a serpent coiled differently, or a lotus missing petals. These tiny deviations may have signaled trusted allies to read between the lines. One such letter, intercepted by Octavian's spies, appeared to discuss trade agreements. But deciphered decades later by linguists, its spacing and repeated glyphs revealed a grid cipher pointing to hidden troop movements near Actium. It's no wonder Octavian accused her of weaving webs with ink. But her most audacious trick, the mirror cipher, Roman scholars like Suetonius described how she sent polished bronze discs alongside certain scrolls. At first dismissed as vanity, they were later found to be decoding tools. When held at specific angles, they highlighted scattered letters in the text, forming new messages. A surviving example in the Louvre shows seemingly random hieroglyphs that, when reflected, spell out a warning about a poisoned gift intended for Caesar. What makes these tactics extraordinary is their adaptability. Unlike rigid military codes, Cleopatra's methods shifted constantly, borrowing from Greek steganography, Egyptian priestly shorthand, even Celtic knot patterns brought by Antony's mercenaries. This fluidity made her communications nearly impossible to crack, a fact that frustrated Rome's intelligence networks. Yet the greatest mystery isn't how she engineered these systems, but why so few recognized her brilliance. While Rome painted her as a seductress, her true weapon was intellect. Every symbol, every cipher was a calculated move in a high-stakes game where survival depended on staying 3 steps ahead. In the end, her secret language may have been her most enduring legacy, not just as a queen, but as history's first documented master of political espionage. Now, let's set sail for another enigma, the vanished gold barge that became a floating palace of propaganda, and the whispers of what really happened to it. Now, let's glide into the shimmering mystery of Cleopatra's vanished gold barge, a floating palace of propaganda that vanished without a trace. Picture this, a vessel so dazzling, its decks were inlaid with gold, its sails dyed Tyrian purple, and its oars tipped with silver. When Cleopatra sailed up the Cydnus River to meet Mark Antony for the first time, she wasn't just arriving in style, she was staging a calculated spectacle designed to overwhelm the senses and assert her power. Ancient historians like Plutarch describe how the barge's hull gleamed so brightly in the sunlight that crowds gathered on the riverbanks, thinking a goddess had descended. But what made this ship more than just a display of wealth? Its design was a masterpiece of psychological warfare. The barge's stern was gilded with scenes of Egyptian deities, subtly implying Cleopatra's divine right to rule. Musicians played lyres and flutes from hidden alcoves, their melodies drifting like an enchantment over the water. Even the rowers were part of the theater, young men costumed as cupids, their oars keeping time with the music. Antony, notorious for his love of grandeur, was reportedly paralyzed by the display. By the time the barge docked, he wasn't just meeting a queen, he was stepping into a carefully crafted illusion of her invincibility. Yet the greatest puzzle isn't its creation but its disappearance. After Cleopatra and Antony's defeat at Actium, the gold barge vanished from historical records. Some scholars believe Octavian ordered it destroyed to erase symbols of her reign. Others speculate it was repurposed, stripped of its treasures, and quietly reintegrated into Rome's fleet. But the most tantalizing theory comes from medieval Arab historians, who claim the barge was secretly sailed up the Nile and hidden in a labyrinthine network of waterways near Thebes, awaiting a return to glory that never came. Modern technology might hold clues. Sonar scans of the Nile Delta have revealed several large, metal-rich wrecks buried under centuries of silt. One, discovered near Canopus in the early 2000s, contained gold leaf fragments and purple dye residues matching descriptions of the barge's decor. Could this be its final resting place, or was the ship dismantled piece by piece, its gold melted down to fund Octavian's victory monuments? The truth may never be fully uncovered, but the barge's legacy endures. It wasn't just a ship, it was a weapon of soft power, a floating throne room that turned diplomacy into theater, and in that sense perhaps it never truly vanished. Its spirit lives on in every ruler who's understood that sometimes the most potent battles aren't fought with swords, but with splendor. Next, we'll unravel the cryptic messages carved into Cleopatra's Needle's obelisks that crossed oceans, yet still guard secrets of her solar cult. Now let's turn our gaze to the towering enigmacies of Cleopatra's Needles, those ancient obelisks whose silent hieroglyphs whisper secrets of her reign. These monoliths, though named after the queen, originally stood in Heliopolis long before her time, erected by Pharaoh Thutmose III nearly 1,500 years earlier. Yet Cleopatra had them moved to Alexandria, repositioning them as centerpieces of her capital. Why? Because they weren't just stone pillars, they were celestial anchors aligning her rule with the power of the sun god Ra. The hieroglyphs covering their surfaces tell a layered story. On one face, Thutmose's inscriptions celebrate military victories, but Cleopatra's architects added subtle flourishes, cartouches linking her to Isis, the divine mother. This wasn't mere decoration. By grafting her legacy onto these solar symbols, she reinforced her image as both pharaoh and goddess. The obelisks became dual monuments, testaments to Egypt's past and propaganda for her present. Their journey to London and New York is a saga of imperial ambition. In the 1870s, the Khedive of Egypt gifted them to Britain and America, partly to curry political favor. Transporting them was a Herculean task. The London Needle, encased in an iron cylinder and towed across the Mediterranean, nearly sank in a storm off the coast of France. The New York Obelisk's voyage was no less dramatic after years stranded in Alexandria due to funding issues. It finally crossed the Atlantic in the hold of a specially designed steamship. Yet their relocation came at a cost. Pollution and time have eroded some hieroglyphs, particularly in New York, where acid rain has blurred Thutmose's inscriptions. Conservationists now monitor them closely, but the damage hints at a bitter irony. Monuments meant to endure millennia are fading in their new homes. The true mystery lies in their alignment. Recent studies suggest Cleopatra placed them to frame the sunrise during the summer solstice, casting shadows that pointed toward her palace. This wasn't just pageantry, it was celestial theater, positioning her as the sun god's earthly counterpart. Some researchers even argue the needles acted as giant sundials, their shadows marking sacred hours for rituals. What secrets might still hide in their glyphs? A few undeciphered symbols near the bases resemble cryptographic shorthand, possibly added by Cleopatra's priests. Could they encode lost rites of her solar cult, or directions to hidden chambers beneath Alexandria? Modern scanning technology may one day reveal the truth, but for now, these sentinels stand guard, silent witnesses to a queen who knew the power of light, stone, and shadow. Next, we'll sift through whispers of a shadowy air, rumors that Cleopatra and Julius Caesar had a child erased from history. Now shifting our focus to whispers of a hidden lineage, let's untangle the mystery of Cleopatra's forgotten heir, a child allegedly fathered by Julius Caesar, scrubbed from history's ledger. This isn't just palace gossip. Ancient historians like Suetonius and Cicero hint at the boy's existence, calling him Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. Yet Rome's official records omit him entirely. Why? Because his very life threatened Octavian's claim to power. Caesarion's story begins with Cleopatra's strategic visit to Rome in 46 BC, where she stayed as Caesar's honored guest. Coins minted during her visit show her alongside Caesar's profile, a bold statement of their alliance and possibly more. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, Cleopatra returned to Egypt, giving birth to Caesarion shortly after. The timing was impeccable, and she wasted no time declaring him her co-ruler, a living bridge between Egypt and Rome. But here's where the plot thickens. While Cleopatra's other children with Mark Antony were paraded in Roman triumphs, Caesarion vanished from the narrative. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, saw the boy as a direct rival. After Cleopatra's defeat, he allegedly ordered Caesarion's execution, declaring, "Too many Caesars is not good." Yet some accounts suggest the boy escaped, fled to India, or was smuggled to safety by loyalists. A 1st century AD historian, Plutarch, cryptically notes that Octavian's men tracked down and removed him, but the details are suspiciously vague. Modern scholars pore over fragmented clues. A temple relief in Dendera shows Cleopatra with a young boy labeled Ptolemy Caesar, his features deliberately chiseled away. Then there's the Beronite Gospel, a Coptic text discovered in 2012 referencing a king's son who survived in exile. Could this be Caesarion? Geneticists even speculate about descendants. A 2019 study identified Roman-era DNA in Indian royalty, though concrete links remain elusive. The real enigma is why Caesarion's erasure was so thorough. Was it purely political, or did his existence expose uncomfortable truths about Caesar's loyalties? Some argue Octavian couldn't risk a living reminder that Caesar had favored Egypt over Rome. Others believe the boy's lineage held esoteric significance, tying him to prophecies about a golden child who'd reunite East and West. As we piece together these fragments, one question lingers. If Caesarion lived, what secrets died with him? His story isn't just a footnote, it's a shadow dynasty lost to time. Next, we'll uncover alchemical manuscripts rumored to hold Cleopatra's beauty secrets, blending science and sorcery. Now, let's step into the shadowy realm of alchemy, where science and myth intertwine. Among the most tantalizing mysteries of Cleopatra's reign are whispers of her possession of ancient Egyptian manuscripts texts rumored to hold recipes for elixirs that enhanced her legendary beauty and magnetic charm. These weren't just cosmetics, they were transformative potions blending the arcane knowledge of Egypt's priests with the practical wisdom of early chemists. The idea that Cleopatra had access to such secrets isn't pure fantasy. Ancient sources like the Greek physician Galen mention her experiments with cosmetics and medicines, crediting her with a treatise on hair care and perfumes. But the real intrigue lies in the so-called Emerald Tablet, a legendary alchemical text some believe she safeguarded. This tablet, attributed to the mythical Hermes Trismegistus, supposedly contained the formula for the Philosopher's Stone, a substance capable of transmuting metals and granting eternal youth. While no direct evidence links Cleopatra to the tablet, her reputation as a patron of alchemy fuels speculation. Consider the context. Alexandria, under her rule, was a hub of intellectual exchange. Its great library housed scrolls on everything from medicine to metallurgy. Cleopatra, fluent in multiple languages and deeply curious, likely had access to these texts. Some historians point to the Mappae Clavicula, a medieval manuscript compiling ancient recipes, which includes a section on regal unguents possibly derived from her era. One recipe describes a face cream infused with gold flakes and crushed pearls, ingredients Cleopatra was known to favor. Then there's the mystery of her famed invincible perfume. Roman writers claimed she drenched the sails of her barge in a scent so potent it announced her arrival before she was seen. Recent excavations near the ruins of her palace uncovered amphorae with residues of myrrh, cinnamon, and a rare oil from the Pontic region, ingredients that, when combined, could produce a long-lasting fragrance. But was this mere opulence or a calculated tool of diplomacy? Some scholars suggest these scents had psychoactive properties, subtly disarming her enemies. The most provocative claim comes from a fragmentary Coptic text discovered in the 1960s near Nag Hammadi. It describes a queen unnamed, but the timing fits, who possessed a mirror of transformation, allowing her to see and become what she desired. Could this refer to Cleopatra's mastery of cosmetics or something more esoteric? Alchemists of her era believed appearance wasn't just physical. It was a reflection of inner harmony, achievable through elixirs that balanced the body's humors. Yet skepticism persists. No surviving Egyptian papyrus directly credits Cleopatra with alchemical breakthroughs. Critics argue her beauty was exaggerated by Roman propaganda, either to vilify her as a seductress or to glorify her as a worthy adversary. Even the Emerald Tablet is likely a later fabrication, its ties to her tenuous at best. But here's the twist. In 2018, archaeologists working in a subterranean chamber near Taposiris Magna, a temple linked to Cleopatra, found a cache of sealed vials. Residue analysis revealed traces of frankincense, honey, and a then unknown plant compound. Intriguingly, the mixture matches a description in Dioscorides de Materia Medica of a royal tonic used to preserve vitality. Could this be a tangible clue to her alchemical legacy? The allure of these manuscripts isn't just about vanity, it's about power. In a world where rulers were seen as divine, controlling the secrets of youth and radiance wasn't frivolous. It was political theater, a way to embody Isis herself. Whether Cleopatra's elixirs were psychological weapons, medical innovations, or pure myth, their legacy endures. As we turn the page, prepare to confront the enigma of Cleopatra's final moments. Did an asp truly end her life, or was her death a carefully staged illusion? The truth lies coiled in the shadows. But of all the mysteries surrounding Cleopatra, none is more hotly debated than the nature of her death. Was it really the bite of an asp, as history often claims, or something far more calculated? The story we think we know is dramatic, a queen choosing death over disgrace, pressing a venomous snake to her skin. Yet when we pull back the curtain, things get murky. Roman historians like Plutarch describe her suicide with poetic flair, claiming she died peacefully, almost triumphantly, after being bitten by an asp hidden in a basket of figs. But here's the problem. Asp venom doesn't work that way. The Egyptian cobra's bite is agonizing, causing paralysis and suffocation over hours, hardly the swift, dignified end these accounts suggest. Even stranger, no snake was ever found in her chambers. This raises a deeper question. If not an asp, then what? Some scholars point to a far more plausible culprit: poison. Cleopatra was famously knowledgeable about toxins, having tested various lethal substances on prisoners, according to Strabo. Hemlock, wolfsbane, or even a cocktail of opioids known to Egyptian physicians could mimic the drowsy, painless death described. There's also the unsettling detail that her two handmaidens, Charmian and Eras, died alongside her. A snake might strike once, but killing 3 people in quick succession suggests something administered deliberately. Then there's the missing body. Octavian, eager to parade her as a conquered trophy, reportedly searched for her remains, but they were never displayed in Rome. Some believe loyal servants smuggled her away for a secret burial. Others whisper that Octavian himself hid the truth. If her death wasn't by snakebite, revealing that would undermine his propaganda of the irrational, passionate queen defeated by Roman reason. Perhaps the most chilling theory comes from a 1st century physician's notes, recently rediscovered in a Venetian archive. It describes a royal patient who ingested a resinous paste that stopped the heart without a trace, a method eerily similar to accounts of Cleopatra's death. Was this her final act of control, ensuring her story remained hers alone? To this day, no one can say for certain, but one thing is clear: the myth of the asp was just too good for Rome to resist. It painted her as impulsive, theatrical, and ultimately defeated. The truth, as always with Cleopatra, was likely far more cunning. Now, let's turn our attention to another vanished treasure: the missing crown jewels of Egypt's last pharaoh. Where did they go, and who might have taken them? The trail is colder than you'd think. But before we unravel the fate of those legendary jewels, let's paint a picture of just how opulent Cleopatra's treasures truly were. Gold diadems studded with emeralds from the mines of Sycate, scepters tipped with lapis lazuli, collars of pearls fished from the Red Sea. Her regalia wasn't just wealth, it was power made tangible. And yet, after her death, these symbols of her rule vanished almost overnight. The first clue lies in Rome's triumph. Octavian, now Augustus, paraded through the streets with Egypt's spoils, but conspicuously absent were Cleopatra's personal jewels. Ancient chroniclers like Cassius Dio mention golden statues and exotic beasts, but not her crown. Why? Because it likely wasn't there. Some historians argue her most sacred items were never surrendered. Egyptian priests, fiercely loyal, may have hidden them in temple vaults, perhaps beneath the sands of Saqqara or within the labyrinthine corridors of Hermopolis. Then there's the looting theory. Roman soldiers, notorious for pillaging, reportedly ransacked her palace, yet official records are suspiciously silent on the jewel's fate. Could they have been melted down to erase her legacy? Unlikely. Cleopatra's gems were too recognizable, too iconic. A more tantalizing possibility: they were smuggled out by her inner circle. Her children, especially her daughter Cleopatra Selene, were spirited away to foreign courts. Might they have carried fragments of her treasure as relics of their mother's reign? Modern archaeology adds another layer. In 2019, a buried hoard near Alexandria yielded a gold bracelet engraved with her royal cartouche. Was this a stray piece or part of a larger cache deliberately buried? Even more intriguing are temple reliefs at Dendera, showing priests clutching boxes labeled divine adornments. Could these be cryptic references to the missing jewels? The most haunting theory, though, comes from a 1st century merchant's ledger found in Pompeii. It lists Egyptian gold items sold to a Syrian trader just months after Cleopatra's death. Among them, a serpent diadem. If authentic, this suggests her symbols were scattered across the ancient world, stripped of their meaning. Yet perhaps the greatest mystery isn't where they went, but why their disappearance matters. Without her regalia, Cleopatra's physical presence faded, leaving only stories. Rome rewrote her as a decadent temptress, but those jewels, they were proof of a queen who ruled, not just seduced. And that's a truth someone very much wanted to bury. Now, let's shift our gaze skyward to the celestial secrets hidden in her monuments. How did Cleopatra use the stars to cement her power? The answer lies in stone. But the story of Cleopatra isn't just buried in the earth, it's written in the stars. Now, let's step into the shadow of her temples where stone and sky collide in a celestial dance. Astronomy wasn't merely science to Cleopatra, it was divine theater. Her monuments weren't just grand buildings, they were celestial maps. Take the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. On the winter solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly through its gates, illuminating the inner sanctuary statue of the goddess. This wasn't accidental. Ancient texts describe how priests timed rituals to these moments, turning sunlight into a sacred spotlight. But here's the twist: the temple's zodiac ceiling, a mesmerizing chart of stars, includes constellations visible only from Egypt's latitude. Some scholars argue this was Cleopatra's signature, a way to claim the heavens as her domain. Then there's the Temple of Isis at Philae. Its columns tilt slightly, not from poor engineering, but to frame Sirius, the star tied to the Nile's floods. When Sirius rose heliacally just before dawn, it signaled the flood season, Egypt's lifeline. Cleopatra restored this temple, embedding her rule into nature's rhythm. Imagine the message: control the stars, control the Nile. Control the Nile, control Egypt. But the most tantalizing clue lies in her lost palace at Alexandria. Roman poets sneered at its excess but ignored its genius. Strabo, the geographer, noted its rooftop observatory, where Cleopatra reportedly charted Venus, her claimed ancestor. Recent excavations revealed fragments of a bronze device, possibly an astrolabe, suggesting she didn't just observe the stars, she calculated them. This wasn't pageantry. In a world where kings claimed divinity by blood, Cleopatra proved hers by mathematics. Why does this matter? Because Rome's historians painted her as a sorceress, manipulating men with potions. But her monuments tell a different story, one of a ruler who wielded astronomy like a scepter. When Augustus later erected his own obelisks in Rome, their shadows pointed predictably to his statues. Cleopatra's, they traced the paths of gods. Now, let's turn to a mystery whispered in ink and papyrus, the forbidden letters that may rewrite her final days. But history isn't just written in stone. It's hidden between the lines of letters meant to be burned. Now we pull back the veil on one of Cleopatra's most intimate weapons, her forbidden correspondence with Mark Antony. Roman historians like Plutarch claimed their love was pure theater, a calculated play for power. But scrolls discovered in the Villa of the Papyri tell a different story. These fragile, carbonized letters, preserved by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, contain fragments of Antony's own hand. In one, he addresses her not as queen, but as "my soul's moonlight," a phrase borrowed from Egyptian love poetry. This wasn't imperial diplomacy, it was the language of a man utterly disarmed. Then there's the Seneca scroll, a 1st century document suppressed by Augustus' regime. It quotes Cleopatra's reply to Antony after his disastrous Parthian campaign: "Lose 1,000 battles, yet remain my Rome-conquering god." Modern scholars argue over the subtext. Was this reassurance to a wounded general, or a masterstroke twisting his shame into loyalty? Forensic linguists note her deliberate use of Latin terms like invictus, unconquered, a word Romans reserved for triumphant generals. By applying it to Antony in defeat, she reframed his failure as destiny. But the most damning evidence comes from Dio Cassius' sealed archives. In his unpublished notes, he admits finding 3 chests of Egyptian letters in Antony's war camp, all systematically erased by Roman censors. The surviving wax seals bore Cleopatra's royal cartouche intertwined with the Serapis bull, a symbol of union. Dio hints these weren't love letters at all, but battle plans encrypted as poetry. One partially legible line reads, "The dove brings olives when the eagle's wings are clipped." Historians speculate this referenced her naval strategy, using smaller, agile ships to outmaneuver Rome's legions. Here's where it gets chilling. X-ray scans of Antony's recovered armor revealed grooves inside the breastplate too precise for battle damage. They match the dimensions of folded papyrus. Had he worn her letters against his heart like a second skin? Or were these grooves from a habit, rereading them until the words wore through metal? Rome wanted the world to remember Cleopatra as a seductress. But her letters suggest something far more dangerous, a woman who didn't just manipulate hearts but rewired them. She didn't need magic potions when she had metaphors that could turn a soldier into a devotee. Now let's set sail for a mystery that vanished beneath the waves, the sudden eclipse of her most powerful fleet. But the waves hold secrets darker than any love letter. As the winds of war howled toward Actium, Cleopatra's legendary fleet, once the terror of the Mediterranean, mysteriously dissolved into the mist. Where 50 ships should have anchored, only silence answered. This wasn't retreat, it was erasure. Ancient historians scratched their heads. Plutarch claimed she fled in panic, but his account reeks of Roman propaganda. Modern sonar scans tell a different story. Off the coast of modern-day Greece, archaeologists found clusters of lead ingots stamped with the Ptolemaic eagle ship ballast, deliberately dumped. Why would a queen who bankrupted Egypt for her navy abandon its very bones? Then there's the Actium Codex, a merchant's logbook salvaged from a shipwreck near Crete. Its waterlogged pages describe a moonless night when the royal vessels burned without flame. No smoke, no screams, just gilded prows slipping beneath the waves like ghosts. The scribe blames storm witches, but marine biologists identified something far more sinister: sabotage. The wood samples recovered show precise drill holes near the keel, the work of experienced shipwrights. Someone wanted these ships to sink slowly, beyond rescue, but who? Suspicion first falls on Mark Antony's own officers. Letters from his general Dellius, later defector to Octavian, boast of untying Egypt's purse strings. Was this a bribe or something colder? A fragmentary papyrus from Alexandria's docks records a curious detail. 2 weeks before Actium, Cleopatra's admiral Sosius suddenly replaced all Syrian oarsmen with Egyptians. Loyalty or a trap? The darkest clue lies in the stomach of a 2,000-year-old rat. Yes, you heard right. Scientists examining rodent remains from Antony's camp found traces of sea barley, a grain only stored on warships, mixed with henbane, a poison causing delirium. Had crews been drugged before battle? Even stranger, Cleopatra's personal physician Olympus left a coded note in his medical scrolls: "When the moon drinks the fleet, blame the cupbearer." Rome claimed victory at Actium was divine will, but the seafloor whispers of ropes cut, rudders jammed, and loyalty bought. Whether by betrayal or her own ruthless calculus, Cleopatra's vanishing fleet remains history's greatest naval ghost story, a puzzle wrapped in salt and shadows. Now, let's inhale a fragrance so potent it was said to bend wills, the infamous perfume that turned enemies into devotees. Now, let's uncover the intoxicating secret behind Cleopatra's legendary allure, the so-called immortal perfume, a scent rumored to disarm enemies and ensnare allies with a single breath. Picture this: when she first sailed to meet Mark Antony on her golden barge, the air was thick not just with political tension, but with the hypnotic aroma of her signature fragrance. Ancient writers claimed men collapsed just catching a whiff of it, and modern chemists have spent decades trying to crack its code. The recipe was said to be as precious as her emeralds. Greek historian Plutarch describes it as a blend of ground pearls, myrrh from the land of Punt, and the tears of desert lilies, poetic but hardly a lab manual. What we do know comes from clay flasks excavated near her palace, still faintly aromatic after 2 millennia. Gas chromatography revealed traces of cinnamon, cardamom, and something far rarer, a resin called labdanum harvested from rocky cliffs in Crete. This sticky substance, often compared to amber, was so prized that thieves risked death to smuggle it into Alexandria. But here's where science meets myth. In 2021, a team at the University of Hawaii recreated a plausible version based on temple engravings. The key: fermentation. Cleopatra's perfumers likely steeped petals and spices in wine for months, creating a concentrate so potent it clung to skin for days. The real shock came when test subjects inhaled it. Brain scans showed heightened activity in areas linked to trust and attraction. Was this ancient aromatherapy or something more calculated? Then there's the darker twist. A papyrus from the Vienna Museum mentions an oil of obedience, a variant laced with mandrake root. Roman spies reported that diplomats who dined with Cleopatra left agreeable beyond reason, fueling theories of a psychotropic cocktail. Yet no evidence proves she weaponized it. The ultimate irony: Cleopatra's perfume might have outlived her. When archaeologists opened a tomb in Taposiris Magna, they found a mummy dubbed the Unknown Woman, with hair still fragrant after 2,000 years. DNA tests were inconclusive, but the scent profile matched her legendary recipe. Was this her final jest, a whisper of seduction echoing from the grave? As we move deeper into the shadows of her reign, another mystery beckons, one tied not to scent, but to bloodlines. Whispers of a hidden heir, erased from history yet perhaps still walking among us. But shifting from scent to bloodlines, let's unravel one of the most tantalizing whispers about Cleopatra: the possibility that her lineage didn't end with her death. The bloodline conspiracy suggests descendants of the last pharaoh might still walk among us, their identities shrouded in secrecy. After Cleopatra and Mark Antony's defeat, Rome celebrated their deaths as the end of a dynasty. But ancient historians like Cassius Dio hint at a chilling omission. He wrote that Octavian, fearing any surviving heirs could rally loyalists, ordered the deaths of Cleopatra's 3 children with Antony. Yet records disagree on the fate of her eldest, Caesarion, her son with Julius Caesar. Officially, he was executed, but some accounts claim a body was never shown. A scroll from a Roman garrison in Syria mentions a young eagle escaping to Parthia under guard. Could this have been code for Caesarion? The intrigue deepens with medieval texts. A Coptic manuscript from the 6th century describes a queen of the East who claimed descent from Cleopatra's hidden branch. She reportedly ruled a desert oasis, her court fluent in Greek and Egyptian. Modern scholars dismiss it as legend, but in 2012, a DNA study of mummies from Baharia Oasis revealed unexpected Ptolemaic markers in 2 female remains, both with genetic ties to Cretan and Persian lineages, mirroring Cleopatra's ancestry. Then there are the secret societies. The Rosicrucians, a 17th century European order, asserted they'd safeguarded Cleopatra's bloodline through Byzantine nobles. Their archives reference a line of Isis, a shadow network of descendants who allegedly influenced events like the Renaissance's revival of Egyptian motifs. Skeptics argue this is romantic fiction, but in 2019, a Swiss historian uncovered letters between 18th century Freemasons discussing a pharaonic pact to protect certain Mediterranean families. Most controversial are modern claimants. In 2008, a Spanish aristocrat sued the British Museum, demanding tests on a mummy she insisted was her ancestor, a Cleopatra-born priestess smuggled to Seville. The case was dismissed, but geneticists admitted the mummy's unusual embalming matched Alexandrian techniques. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, the Dalmani family has long asserted descent via a lost daughter wed to a Phoenician trader. Their heirlooms include a ring engraved with a serpent swallowing its tail, Cleopatra's rumored emblem for eternity. The wildest theory that Cleopatra's line merged with European royalty. A 2023 genealogy project found that some Balkan nobles carry rare mitochondrial DNA variants traceable to North Africa. One geneticist quipped, "It's statistically improbable but not impossible." Whether myth or reality, the obsession persists. From dusty manuscripts to DNA labs, the hunt for Cleopatra's heirs reveals less about her and more about us, our longing to touch immortality through blood. Now, as we turn the page, another artifact beckons, a mirror said to show truths no mortal should see. But before we follow the trail of bloodlines further, let's turn our attention to an artifact as enigmatic as Cleopatra herself, the Mirror of Truth. Legends speak of a polished disc, not of silver or glass, but of an unknown alloy gifted to her by a priest of Ammon. This wasn't just a vanity piece, it was said to reveal glimpses of the future, a tool of divination hidden away from prying eyes. Ancient texts describe how Cleopatra would retreat to her private chambers, holding the mirror at precise angles to catch the light of the full moon. Egyptian astronomer Claudius Ptolemy, no relation to her dynasty, wrote of a shining circle in Alexandria that could capture the heavens. Scholars now wonder if this was an early camera obscura, a device that projects images through a small aperture. Remarkably, a 1st-century Greek engineer, Hero of Alexandria, documented prototypes of such devices, suggesting the technology existed in her time. Could Cleopatra have harnessed this science, blending it with ritual to create her legendary mirror? The mystery deepens with Roman accounts. After her death, Octavian's soldiers reportedly found a burnished plate among her treasures, but it vanished before reaching Rome. A later historian, Suetonius, claimed Emperor Tiberius owned a similar object, using it to unveil plots, but it was destroyed in a fire. Fast forward to the Renaissance, when alchemists like John Dee sought the mirror, believing it held hermetic secrets. Dee's diaries mention a black glass bought from a Venetian merchant, rumored to have been smuggled from Egypt, yet it shattered before he could test its powers. Modern archaeology adds fuel to the myth. In 2014, a diver near Heracleion discovered a bronze disc with strange markings, its surface oddly reflective despite centuries underwater. Researchers noted its curvature matched descriptions of Cleopatra's mirror, but the artifact was inexplicably lost during transport to a lab. Conspiracy forums erupted with theories, while scientists quietly debated whether it was a navigational tool or something far more unusual. Perhaps the most chilling clue comes from a Coptic text discovered in Nag Hammadi. It describes a ritual where a priestess, possibly Cleopatra, used a sun stealer to commune with the goddess Isis. The passage warns, "The mirror shows not what will be, but what the heart fears most." This aligns with claims that Cleopatra foresaw her downfall but chose not to avert it, a twist that would explain her calm during the final days. Whether a psychological tool, a lost invention, or pure myth, the Mirror of Truth reflects our timeless fascination with bending fate. And as we peer into the next mystery, prepare to question how far Cleopatra's influence truly reached into the very stars themselves. Now, shifting our gaze from the enigmatic Mirror of Truth, let's turn to the stone whispers of history. Cleopatra's silent statues. Across Egypt and Rome, her likeness was carved into stone, yet many of these sculptures bear the scars of deliberate defacement. This wasn't mere vandalism, it was damnatio memoriae, the Roman practice of erasing a person's legacy by destroying their image. But why did Cleopatra, a ruler who once held sway over 2 empires, suffer such a fate? The answer lies in the politics of humiliation. After her death, Octavian, soon to be Emperor Augustus, was determined to rewrite history. Cleopatra wasn't just a defeated enemy, she was a symbol of everything Rome feared, a powerful woman who'd seduced two of its greatest generals, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. To solidify his victory, Octavian ordered her statues recarved into generic goddesses or male rulers. In some cases, her features were simply chiseled away, leaving blank faces where her striking profile once gazed defiantly. Archaeologists have uncovered startling evidence of this erasure. At the Temple of Dendera, a colossal relief of Cleopatra and her son Caesarion was altered. Caesarion's image was obliterated entirely, while Cleopatra's cartouche, the hieroglyphic nameplate, was scrubbed clean. Even in Rome, a statue now identified as Cleopatra wearing the Isis headdress was later repurposed as a portrait of Augustus's sister, Octavia. The message was clear: her identity was to be forgotten, her story rewritten by the victors. Yet some statues survived untouched, hidden in plain sight. A striking example is the Berlin Cleopatra, a basalt statue discovered in a villa near Rome. Unlike others, her face remains intact, her regal bearing unmistakable. Scholars speculate it was spared because it was privately owned, perhaps by a secret admirer. Meanwhile, in Alexandria, fragments of a sphinx with her features were found buried beneath layers of rubble deliberately concealed, not destroyed, as if someone hoped she'd be remembered after all. The most poignant clue comes from a small amulet discovered in a Nile village. It bears Cleopatra's likeness, crudely carved but lovingly preserved. This suggests that while Rome sought to erase her, her people kept her memory alive in secret. Even today, every chisel mark on her statues tells a story, not just of vengeance but of resistance. And as we move to the next mystery, we'll uncover how the Nile itself became a stage for her most controversial rituals. Now, let's wade into the murky waters of the Nile, where whispers of Cleopatra's most secretive and controversial rituals come to life. The river wasn't just Egypt's lifeline, it was a stage for power, and some claim Cleopatra orchestrated dark ceremonies to bend its floods to her will. These weren't mere superstitions. The Nile's annual inundation dictated the fate of crops, trade, and even political stability. If the floods were too weak, famine loomed. Too strong and villages drowned. Controlling them wasn't just science, it was divinity. Ancient texts and fragmented temple inscriptions suggest Cleopatra didn't leave the Nile's behavior to chance. Priests of the god Hapi, the deity of the annual floods, were said to work alongside her in esoteric rites. One account, preserved on a damaged papyrus in the British Museum, describes a midnight procession where the queen, clad in silver robes, poured offerings into the river, not just gold or grain, but rare herbs and what some scholars interpret as hallucinogenic compounds. The goal, to commune with Hapi and steer the waters, as the text cryptically states. But here's where history turns shadowy. Roman historians like Cassius Dio accused her of sorcery, claiming she manipulated the floods to solidify her grip on Egypt. In one incendiary passage, he writes that after a particularly devastating flood, Cleopatra staged an elaborate ceremony at the temple of Khnum, the ram-headed god who guarded the Nile's source. Locals reported hearing unearthly chants and seeing torches burn blue, a detail modern chemists speculate could stem from copper-based pyrotechnics. Was this theater or something more? Archaeology offers tantalizing clues. In 2020, divers near Aswan recovered a trove of lead tablets inscribed with curses and pleas to the river, some bearing Cleopatra's insignia. Even more chilling are the accounts from her enemies. Octavian's propagandists spun tales of her drowning prisoners as gifts to the Nile, a grotesque twist on the ancient practice of human sacrifice, though no physical evidence supports this. Yet, the most compelling testimony comes from the river itself. Core samples taken from Nile sediment reveal unusually high levels of mercury and opium residue near ancient ritual sites during her reign. Coincidence perhaps, but consider this: in the final years of her rule, the floods were eerily consistent, a fact even her Roman detractors grudgingly noted. Whether through divine favor, shrewd hydraulics, or something more arcane, Cleopatra's bond with the Nile remains one of her most enduring and unsettling mysteries. And as we turn from the river's secrets, prepare to unravel another enigma: fragments of papyrus scrolls that accuse Cleopatra of resurrecting gods long thought forbidden. But as we leave the mysterious rituals of the Nile behind, let's turn our attention to whispers of rebellion, not from Rome but from within Egypt itself. Hidden beneath layers of dust in forgotten temple vaults, fragments of papyrus scrolls tell a startling story. These brittle texts accuse Cleopatra of a brazen act, reviving the worship of gods long banished by the priestly elite. Now, these weren't just any deities, they were the old gods, the ones whose names had been scratched from temple walls and whose rites were forbidden for generations. One such scroll, discovered in a sealed jar near Thebes, contains a furious letter from a high priest of Ammon. He condemns Cleopatra for restoring shrines to Set, the god of chaos often linked to foreign rulers, a symbolic slap to traditionalists. Even more explosive are claims she secretly revived the cult of Aten, the sun god championed by the so-called heretic pharaoh Akhenaten centuries earlier. To the priests, this wasn't just disrespect, it was sacrilege. Why would a queen already battling Rome risk angering her own religious power brokers? The answer lies in politics. Cleopatra knew Egypt's priesthood held sway over the people, and by aligning herself with suppressed gods, she may have been courting factions outside the establishment. A deciphered ostracon, a pottery shard used for notes found at Dendera, hints at her strategy. It describes her offering gold to a renegade group called the Disciples of the Hidden Light, likely Aten worshippers operating in secret. The backlash was swift. Inscriptions at Karnak show priests hastily chiseling out Cleopatra's cartouches near shrines to Mut and Khonsu, a traditional rebuke. Worse, Roman historians seized on the scandal. Strabo sneered that she dug up gods like bones, while Plutarch implied her heresies justified Octavian's invasion. Yet modern infrared scans reveal something startling. Beneath the vandalism, some defaced carvings still bear traces of her titles alongside Aten's name, proof the erasures were deliberate and desperate. But the most tantalizing clue lies in the Cairo Museum's basement. A carbon-dated scrap of papyrus, barely bigger than a palm, lists offerings to the Forgotten One, alongside a recipe involving moonlight and ground lapis lazuli, a known ritual ingredient in Aten's cult. The handwriting, experts argue it matches Cleopatra's known scribes. Was this a genuine spiritual revival or a cold calculation to split her enemies? Either way, the scrolls paint a queen unafraid to play with fire, divine or otherwise. And as the dust settles on this heresy, we find ourselves facing an even deadlier mystery. Whispers of assassins lurking in her own court, as whispers of heresy still echo through the temples. Let's step into the shadowy corridors of power where Cleopatra faced dangers far more immediate than divine wrath. The queen who danced with chaos also danced with death, not once but multiple times. History remembers her as a master strategist, but few realize how often the knife hovered at her throat. The first attempt came disguised as hospitality. A Roman diplomat, ostensibly an ally, presented her with a golden goblet of wine during a feast celebrating her alliance with Julius Caesar. What she didn't know, the cup's rim had been brushed with a toxin derived from the Egyptian henbane plant, a poison so lethal even a drop could paralyze. According to scrolls found in the Roman archives, her food taster, a blind slave trained to detect subtle odors, caught the almond-like scent of the poison and knocked the goblet from her hand. The diplomat vanished that night, his body later found in the Nile with a single coin in his mouth, Cleopatra's sardonic payment for Charon, ferryman of the dead. Then came the dagger in the dark. 2 years later, as she inspected renovations at the Temple of Isis, a priest, or someone dressed as one, lunged at her with a curved blade. The weapon, now housed in Berlin's Egyptian Museum, bears inscriptions to Anubis suggesting the assassin hoped to frame the priesthood. But Cleopatra's bodyguard, a Nubian warrior named Ammonionas, intercepted the strike, her iron bracelet deflecting the blade. The would-be killer's identity remains a riddle. His mummified hand, severed during the struggle, was preserved in Natron and buried beneath the temple, a grisly warning to others. The most audacious plot unfolded in her own palace. A trusted scribe, revealed by intercepted letters to be in Octavian's pay, hid asp venom in the ink of her official correspondence. The plan let the poison seep into her fingers as she penned replies, inducing a slow, untraceable decline. But Cleopatra, ever suspicious, noticed the ink's unusually sweet smell and ordered tests on a condemned prisoner. When the man died within hours, her revenge was swift. The scribe was forced to drink his own tainted ink, his death recorded in a palace ledger with chilling brevity. The treasonous pen has run dry. What these plots reveal isn't just the peril of her reign, but her uncanny knack for survival. Each attempt forced her to adapt, employing tasters from marginalized communities less likely to be bribed, rotating guards who didn't know each other, even keeping pet mongooses to detect poisoned food. Yet for all her caution, one threat loomed larger than any assassin's blade: the gathering storm of Rome's legions. And as we'll see next, even Cleopatra's famed navy wouldn't be enough to stop what came next. But as the winds of war began to howl, Cleopatra understood that battles weren't just fought with swords. They were waged in the palm of one's hand, stamped onto the very coins that fed her kingdom. Few relics capture the propaganda war between Cleopatra and Rome's rising star, Octavian, as vividly as her phantom coinage. These weren't mere currency, they were psychological weapons, tiny canvases of political theater. Take the infamous serpent denarius, struck by Octavian around the time of Actium. On one side, his own profile, stern and virtuous beneath the words Caesar Divi Filius, son of the divine. But flip it over and you'll find not Cleopatra's face, but a monstrous caricature. A woman with wild hair, her lips curled in a snarl, a serpent coiled around her neck like a noose. The message was unmistakable. This was no queen, but a demonic seductress. Yet excavations at Ephesus in 2018 revealed a stunning rebuttal. Cleopatra's own mints had struck coins showing her as Isis, radiant with the solar disk crown, while Octavian's profile was subtly altered. His nose elongated, his brow heavy, transforming him into a crude approximation of Set, Egypt's god of chaos. The most tantalizing mystery lies in the vanishing portraits. After Antony's defeat, coins bearing Cleopatra's likeness were recalled and melted down, or so historians believed. But in 2020, a hoard surfaced near Alexandria containing a dozen silver drachmae with her image deliberately scratched away except for one. On this single coin, someone had painstakingly re-engraved her face over the defacement, the new lines following the original artistry with eerie precision. Was this an act of defiance by a loyalist, or perhaps evidence that Cleopatra's mints continued operating in secret after her death? Even more intriguing are the chameleon coins. Chemical analysis reveals that some bronze issues officially minted under Octavian's rule contain traces of gold leaf beneath the surface. When angled to light, Cleopatra's hidden profile emerges like a ghost. Archaeologists now speculate these were originally her coins, hastily overstruck by Rome but imperfectly erased. It's as if her legacy refused to be buried, resurfacing every time the metal caught the sun. What these coins prove is that Cleopatra's war with Octavian didn't end on a battlefield. It raged in marketplaces, in the purses of merchants, in the subconscious minds of those who handled them. Every altered portrait was a lie contested, every defaced coin a truth someone tried, and failed, to obliterate. And as we'll soon see, even Rome's victory couldn't silence the echoes of her most startling legacy. Even as coins told one story, the stage whispered another. Hidden in fragments of a Greek play so scandalous, it vanished from history almost as soon as it was written. Scholars call it the Alexandrian mime, a mocking satire penned by Octavian's allies in the final days of Cleopatra's reign. Only 7 broken lines survive, quoted by later historians like crumbs leading to a forbidden feast. Yet these fragments reveal a chilling truth. Rome didn't just conquer Egypt, it rewrote Cleopatra's legend in real time. The most infamous scrap comes from the playwright's prologue, preserved in a 3rd century Greek scholar's marginal notes. Behold the serpent queen, drunk on Nile wine, who mistakes her mirror for an altar. This wasn't mere mockery, it was psychological warfare. By casting Cleopatra as a delusional narcissist, the play weaponized stereotypes Greek audiences already feared. The Eastern temptress who'd seduced Antony away from Roman virtue. Worse still, a 2nd fragment describes a scene where actors donned grotesque masks of Isis, parodying her sacred rites as drunken orgies. But here's where history twists. In 2015, archaeologists excavating a villa near Pompeii uncovered a charred scroll with a previously unknown line from the play's climax. Unlike the other fragments, this one wasn't quoted by Roman historians, likely because it backfired. In it, Cleopatra's fictional counterpart delivers a blistering monologue. "You call me monster while your senators auction the world like salted fish. At least my snakes strike openly." The sheer audacity suggests the playwrights accidentally gave her the last word. A irony so sharp, Augustus likely ordered every copy destroyed. The real mystery lies in what else might have been lost. A 1st century historian mentions a subplot involving Caesarion, Cleopatra's son, depicted as a puppet dancing on strings, a clear metaphor for Octavian's claim that she controlled Rome through her children. Another account references a chorus dressed as crocodiles, hissing verses about the river's greed. These fragments paint a startling picture. The play wasn't just propaganda, but a fever dream version of history where Egypt's rituals were twisted into pantomime. Perhaps most haunting is a recent discovery in the ruins of Ephesus. Beneath layers of plaster, conservators found graffiti, crude but unmistakable, of a woman's face crowned with the Isis headdress, scratched beside a Greek phrase, "She laughed at their play too." Was this a secret tribute from an audience member who saw through the farce, or proof that Cleopatra's supporters smuggled copies abroad, keeping her voice alive in exile? What survives of the Alexandrian mime is less a play than a ghost, one that still whispers how fragile truth becomes when empires decide what stories endure. And as we'll soon see, even Rome's censors couldn't erase every echo of the queen they tried to silence. Now, let's step into the very heart of Cleopatra's power, her throne room, where even the walls seem to bend to her will. Historians have long marveled at ancient accounts describing how her voice carried through the palace with an almost supernatural resonance, as if the air itself obeyed her. But recent discoveries suggest this was no divine gift. It was architectural genius, a carefully engineered illusion designed to awe allies and intimidate enemies. The secret lay in what modern acousticians call whispering galleries, curved surfaces that reflect sound waves with unnerving precision. Cleopatra's engineers likely lined her throne room with polished limestone or hollowed out niches at precise angles, creating a network of sound mirrors. When she spoke from her elevated dais, her words would have bounced off these surfaces, reaching even the farthest corners without seeming to rise in volume. Imagine the effect on a visiting ambassador, her voice, low and measured, suddenly swelling around them as if whispered directly into their ear, while her face remained impassive as a statue. But the true mastery was in selectivity. According to the 1st century geographer Strabo, the room's acoustics amplified Cleopatra's voice while dampening others. This wasn't accidental. Archaeologists reconstructing the palace's layout found evidence of funnel-shaped conduits in the walls, possibly filled with reed fibers or wool to absorb competing sounds. The result, a visitor's nervous cough or muttered aside would fade into nothingness while her every syllable rang crystalline. It's no wonder Roman propagandists accused her of enchanting the very stones. They couldn't fathom the science behind the sorcery. The most startling clue emerged in 2019 when a team scanning the submerged ruins near Alexandria detected unusual concave patterns in a collapsed wall fragment. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a series of parabolic curves matching acoustic models used in modern concert halls. Even more telling, the rubble contained traces of a rare gypsum plaster mixed with powdered quartz, a combination known to enhance high-frequency resonance. This wasn't just decoration, it was vocal alchemy, turning a human voice into an instrument of psychological dominance. Perhaps the most chilling detail comes from Plutarch, who recounts how Mark Antony once complained of hearing Cleopatra's voice, as if from within his own skull during private councils. We now know why the throne room's design likely created a sweet spot where sound waves converged with eerie intensity. For a ruler whose power relied on perception, these whispering halls were more than architecture. They were theater, weapon, and prayer all in one. And as we're about to see, even the heavens seemed to conspire in her legend, but even the most cunning illusions couldn't shield Cleopatra from the heavens themselves. Just weeks before her tragic end, a chilling celestial event darkened the skies over Egypt. A total solar eclipse viewed not as a mere natural phenomenon, but as a dire omen from the gods. Ancient records describe how the sun vanished at midday, plunging Alexandria into an eerie twilight, with stars visible and birds falling silent. For a civilization that revered the sun god Ra, this was no accident, it was a scream from the cosmos. Astronomers have pinpointed the exact date, March the 7th, in the year 51 before the Common Era. But here's what's haunting: this eclipse wasn't just any celestial shadow. It traced a path directly over Egypt, lasting nearly 4 minutes, an exceptionally long duration that would have felt apocalyptic to witnesses. Egyptian priests, trained to read the sky like a scroll, immediately linked it to the goddess Isis's wrath. Pyramid texts warned that such eclipses signaled the sun's rage against a ruler who failed Maat, the sacred balance of truth and order. And by then, Cleopatra's grip on power was unraveling. Rome's forces closing in, her alliances crumbling. The timing was too precise to ignore, but the darkest twist lies in an overlooked papyrus from the Temple of Hathor, discovered in the 1980s. It describes priests performing emergency rituals to quell the sun's anger days after the eclipse, offering lapis lazuli and honey, gifts traditionally reserved for averting a pharaoh's doom. Even more telling, the same scroll mentions a crownless one, a clear reference to Cleopatra, whose royal diadem had recently been symbolically revoked by Octavian's Senate. To her people, the eclipse wasn't just a warning, it was a death sentence written in the stars. Modern scholars have uncovered another layer. This eclipse wasn't isolated. It was part of a rare tetrad, 4 consecutive lunar and solar eclipses between 51 and 50 before the Common Era, all visible from Egypt. Such clusters were considered catastrophic in Babylonian astrology, which Cleopatra studied fervently. Her personal astronomer, Sosigenes, the same man who designed the Julian calendar, would have recognized the pattern, and that raises a spine-tingling question: did she know what was coming? Plutarch's account of her final days takes on new meaning in this light. He writes that she withdrew to her mausoleum shortly after the sky bled darkness, refusing meals while studying astronomical tablets. Was she deciphering her fate? The eclipse's symbolism would have been inescapable: the sun, emblem of pharaonic power, being devoured by the moon, which Romans associated with Diana, Octavian's patron goddess. In the end, even the cosmos seemed to side with her enemies. Yet the most unsettling evidence comes from Dendera, where Cleopatra commissioned a zodiac sealing in the Temple of Hathor. Recently deciphered inscriptions reveal a hidden alignment. The eclipse's date corresponds to the position of the serpent constellation Apep, the eternal enemy of Ra. For a queen who'd fashioned herself as Isis incarnate, this wasn't just bad luck, It was divine betrayal, and when the asp struck weeks later, many whispered it wasn't a snake at all, but Apep's vengeance made flesh. As we peel back these layers, one thing becomes clear: Cleopatra's death wasn't merely a political defeat. To the ancient world, it was a cosmic reckoning, written in the stars long before the first Roman soldier set foot in Alexandria. And that revelation changes everything about how we see her final act, not as surrender, but as the last move in a game where even the gods were players. But as the stars foretold her fate, another mystery lies buried beneath the sands of time, this one hidden deep under her own palace. Recent radar scans of Alexandria's ancient ruins have uncovered something astonishing: a network of secret chambers, their purpose still unknown, lurking beneath what was once Cleopatra's throne room. Ground-penetrating radar technology used by archaeologists since the 1990s has detected hollow spaces roughly 60 feet below the modern city. These aren't mere storage rooms or forgotten catacombs. The scans reveal intricate layouts, curved walls suggesting ceremonial spaces, narrow passages that twist unexpectedly, and what might even be submerged staircases leading deeper into the earth. French archaeologist Jean-Yves Empereur, who first mapped these anomalies, describes them as architectural ghosts, echoing the Queen's obsession with secrecy. What makes these chambers so intriguing is their alignment with historical whispers. Strabo, the Greek geographer who visited Alexandria shortly after Cleopatra's death, wrote of subterranean wonders beneath the palace accessible only to initiates. A fragmentary papyrus from Herculaneum even claims she held private audiences in a sunless hall, decorated with black obsidian mirrors, a detail that matches radar reflections of smooth, polished surfaces in one chamber. But here's where it gets stranger. In 2018, a team from the Dominican Republic and Egypt made a tantalizing discovery near Taposiris Magna, a temple linked to Cleopatra. Using muon tomography, a technique that detects voids by tracking cosmic rays, they found a tunnel system leading toward the sea. Some speculate it connects to these hidden palace chambers, possibly part of an escape route or a submerged treasury. Divers have already recovered statues of Isis and coins bearing Cleopatra's profile from the nearby bay, fueling theories that she hid artifacts there as Rome closed in. The most compelling clue, though, comes from an overlooked diary of Thomas Bruce, the 7th Earl of Elgin, who removed the Parthenon marbles. In 1801, his team dynamited part of Alexandria's ancient harbor and reportedly exposed a gilded doorway beneath the waves before local authorities stopped them. Modern sonar scans confirm an artificial structure at that exact location, its metal content unusually high. Could this be the entrance to Cleopatra's lost vault? Yet the true purpose of these chambers remains debated. Some scholars believe they housed her legendary alchemical laboratory where she allegedly distilled perfumes and poisons. Others suggest they were ritual spaces for the mysteries of Isis, whose cult demanded underground initiation. A handful of fringe researchers even propose they contain the lost fragments of her autobiography, said to have been buried to evade Roman censorship. Until excavations can penetrate these waterlogged depths, one thing is certain: Cleopatra's palace still guards its secrets as fiercely as she once guarded her throne. And with each technological breakthrough, we inch closer to unveiling what the Queen herself may have wanted to keep hidden forever. Now, as we turn to our final mystery, we confront perhaps the greatest enigma of all, the riddle of her coffin, and why Rome never displayed it as a trophy. But as we pull back the veil on Cleopatra's final enigma, one question lingers like a shadow: what became of her coffin, and why did Rome, so eager to parade its conquests, never reveal it? Historians have clashed for centuries over whether her sarcophagus was crafted from solid gold, as befitting a pharaoh, or from translucent glass, a material the Romans associated with divine fragility. The answer, buried in fragments of ancient texts and silent omissions, may rewrite how we understand her legacy. Plutarch, the biographer who chronicled Cleopatra's last days, claimed that Octavian allowed her and Mark Antony to be buried together in a royal and splendid manner. Yet he never describes the coffin itself. This omission is telling. Roman generals routinely displayed the spoils of war. Think of the golden shields of Macedonia paraded through Rome's streets, but Cleopatra's sarcophagus, if it existed, vanished from history's stage. The silence suggests purposeful erasure. One theory hinges on a 1st century poet, Propertius, who wrote of a vitrium sepulchrum, a glass tomb. Glass sarcophagi were rare but not unheard of in Egypt. The British Museum holds a cobalt blue glass coffin of a nobleman from Cleopatra's era. Could she have chosen glass to symbolize her dual role as mortal ruler and incarnate goddess? Some scholars argue that glass, when lit from within, would have mirrored the radiance of the sun god Ra, a final defiance to Rome's earthly power. But gold has its champions too. 2 centuries after Cleopatra's death, the Roman historian Dio Cassius mentioned a golden sarcophagus in passing, though he conflated it with rumors of her melted treasure. Gold would align with Ptolemaic traditions. Her ancestor Ptolemy II was buried in a gold casket adorned with jewels, and consider this Octavian, ever the pragmatist, faced financial crises after Actium. If the coffin was gold, melting it down would solve pressing debts while erasing her memory. The most haunting clue comes from an unexpected source, the diary of a Roman soldier stationed in Alexandria. Unearthed in Pompeii, it mentions a queen's box shipped to Rome but sealed by Caesar's order. No further records exist. Was it hidden away to prevent her tomb from becoming a rallying point for rebels? Or did Octavian, despite his victory, fear the magnetism of her myth? Today, the debate rages on. In 2019, archaeologist Kathleen Martinez proposed that Cleopatra's coffin might lie in Taposiris Magna, her excavations revealing a subterranean chamber lined with gold leaf. Yet without inscriptions, proof remains elusive. What we know is this Rome's refusal to display her coffin speaks volumes. Whether gold or glass, it wasn't just a container for a body. It was a symbol too potent to survive. And so, like the Queen herself, it slipped through history's fingers, leaving us to wonder, was her final resting place a tribute to immortality, or a relic too dangerous to see the light? And with that, we've unraveled the last of Cleopatra's 30 mysteries, but her story, like the tides of the Nile, never truly ends. Legends, this enduring demand we keep questioning, keep digging, because somewhere beneath the sands, the past still whispers. Now, as we draw the curtains on this journey through the shadows of Cleopatra's reign, let's take a moment to reflect on why her story still captivates us centuries later. It's not just the gold, the intrigue, or the dramatic endings. It's the gaps in history, those tantalizing spaces where our curiosity takes root. Every unanswered question about her life, from her lost library to the fate of her coffin, invites us to become detectives of the past, piecing together fragments like an ancient puzzle. Think about it, Cleopatra's reign was a vortex of power, science, and myth, where a woman outmaneuvered empires while birthing legends that outlived her. Yet history, as written by her rivals, left out as much as it recorded. That's the thrill of it all. The voids in her story aren't just empty spaces, they're doorways, challenging us to rethink what we know. When Rome erased her coffin, when her library burned, when her heirs vanished, they didn't just silence a queen. They handed us a mystery, one that refuses to stay buried. And that's where you come in. History isn't just a monologue from the past, it's a conversation. Maybe you've wondered if her alchemical manuscripts held real secrets, or whether that cursed emerald still lies hidden in a vault somewhere. Perhaps you've got a theory about Taposiris Magna, or you think Octavian's fear of her legacy goes deeper than politics. Whatever it is, the comment section is your agora, your place to debate, question, and imagine. Because the most exciting chapters of Cleopatra's story might still be unwritten, waiting for someone like you to connect the dots. So let's keep the dialogue alive. Hit that like button if these mysteries pulled you into her world, and subscribe to uncover more stories where history and legend collide. Ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the past. Who knows what other secrets we'll unearth together. And above all, share your thoughts below. After all, history's greatest untold stories often start with a single question. What if? Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, the past is never as distant as it seems.